Hi everyone, welcome to my channel if you're new here. Welcome back to my channel if you're a returning viewer or subscriber. So happy to have you here either way. Today's video is very exciting because I've been planning this one for a really long time. I've got so many summer book recs to share with you. Summer is fast approaching us. In fact, it might actually already be summer. I'm not sure. It depends which kind of system you go by. But it is May, June is around the corner. It will arrive before we know it. The weather's already kind of like getting warmer, finally, because in the UK we've had a really cold spring and it's been the worst. So I'm so excited to welcome the warm weather, and with it all the books that are kind of themed around the season. Summer is my favorite season, and I love reading books that kind of can be associated with specific seasons. Here are 10 book recs, actually 11, but 2 by the same author that I'm going to kind of group together because I think perfect for literally every single possible summer occasion. Whether you're leaving the country, whether you're stuck at home, whether you're going to a tropical destination, or whether you're going on like a little weekend getaway somewhere, there's a book for every single person, covering a bunch of different genres. We've got romance, we've got lit fic, we've got a fantasy. It's all going on here. Last year I filmed one of these videos. I mentioned another like 10 books, maybe even more than that. It could have been about 15. I'm not going to kind of re-mention any of those in this video just because I don't want to kind of repeat myself, but I do still stand by all of my past recommendations. So I'll have that video linked down below if you haven't seen it yet and you're still interested in more recommendations. 25 books to recommend to you if you haven't already seen that one. Without further ado, I'm so excited to share with you a bunch of book recs for summer reading. The order I'm going in, by the way, is just completely all over the place. I have kind of split the genres up so that there's a bit of, what am I talking about? Like, there's a bit of variety within my speaking, but aside from that, everything else is just like random, so you will have to kind of pick and choose around a little bit, but I will leave timestamps down below of each book so you can skip if you're not interested in the specific one I'm going to be talking about. Okay, starting in no order, like I said, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. If you're a romance girly and you haven't read I was going to say a Tessa Bailey book, but like this book specifically, you need to get to it because I'm sure that you will love it if you're into romance books. It follows Piper, and she's kind of like an LA socialite, and she's sent to a little town in Washington. Yeah, Westport in Washington. And she's sent there by her stepfather because he's like, you need to like get real, be kind of more humble, more down to earth, and kind of take your life more seriously. So he sends her back to where she grew up when she was very little, touch the grass a bit. And while she's down there, Piper meets Brendan, and Brendan is a fisherman. He's very much kind of like salt of the earth, born and raised Westport, Washington, and they're just polar opposite characters, but somehow, I don't know, opposites attract or something like that, because there is a romance that forms between the two of them. I love the story. I really enjoyed the fact that the couple get together like about a third of the way through the book, so we have quite a lot of screen time of them together, which is, I feel like it's kind of unusual in romance books. Despite this being kind of a bit of a lengthy book, I never felt like it dragged. I really enjoyed this actually. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, which A, I'm a very, very fussy rater, and B, I don't love romance books, so this was like kind of special. The one thing I will say is that the spice is a little bit cringe. On the whole, this was like a really fun time, and also the absolute perfect like small town romance book. This Westport town is just full of like fishermen, people who work the land and the sea essentially. Everybody knows everybody, and it's really kind of a wholesome, their work is like a labour of love, and I think that's really kind of really nice, and also gives you the summer vibes because, you know, it was by the sea, they're talking about the ocean a lot and things like that, and I don't know, it's just so fun. I really recommend this one. I also think the ending's a little bit crazy, that's why I couldn't put the rating up higher, but the majority of the book I really thoroughly enjoyed. So that's the first book that I have to mention, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I'm going to put the books back here so you can kind of see them, so you don't forget about them as we go. Okay, a totally different vibe. We have a modern classic, Bonjour, Tristesse by Françoise Sagan. This is a modern classic, like I said. A really short little book. I believe it's actually considered a novella, but it's literally like, how many pages? It's 100 and... no, it's literally exactly 100 pages. This is actually a bind up, a couple of different books by this author. I haven't read the second one, but Bonjour Tristesse was beautiful. We follow Cecile, and she lives with her father. They have a very kind of liberal existence. They just do what they want. They eat all the great food. They go out for parties. They drink. They stay up late. They lounge by the sea, and they're living their best lives 24/7. That is until Cecile's father invites this lady to kind of holiday with them, to summer with them. They're in the French Riviera, and everything's just beautiful for Cecile. She's got no responsibilities, and she's very much kind of like on the precipice of becoming an adult, but she's still very much wrapped up in her no cares, no responsibilities childhood, or like adolescence. It becomes a bit of a coming of age novel when this new lady kind of imposes some rules on Cecile's life and really switches up like the way that her father acts, because he has someone else to like be accountable for. He's not a very good parent to Cecile. Really, really beautiful story. There's so much depth to this, but it's also a very easy read. It definitely doesn't kind of read like a classic. It's very beautifully written, but you can kind of like read as much meaning into this as you want to, which I think is really good for people who are not used to classics, or just want like a light beach read, but perhaps want to dwell on things a little bit further. It definitely leaves you thinking, and I think that's what I particularly enjoyed about the book, but I also really just enjoyed it for the vibes. This book just encapsulates those really lazy summer vibes. Cecile spends her time either like eating fresh fruit by the house, traveling down to the sea, swimming in the sea all day, coming up in the evening and having a lovely dinner and going out for drinks on the French Riviera. It's just a really beautifully atmospheric book. It's a really thought-provoking book, but it's also perfect for a kind of like weekend getaway, because you could definitely read this just across a couple of days, or even in one. And I have an entire one book focused reading vlog on this book. I'll have this linked in the cards and down below if anybody's interested. I always harp on about that, but when I posted that video, it was actually my favourite one I'd made to date, so I'd really recommend it. It's also spoiler free, but it's an entire vlog about this book. Okay, we're back for the fun romance vibes, really light-hearted book, Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, which is a series of interconnected standalones set in a small town, set on a ranch. These are about cowboys. They're all in a big family, and it's about their kind of individual romance stories. That's what we follow across the whole series. I've read Flawless and Heartless, the second book as well. I haven't finished the series yet, but I would recommend the whole series, because you can obviously like pick this one up and then just binge the rest of the series if you're into them. But the reason why I'm mentioning this book particularly is because it's one of my favourite books ever. This was a 4.5 star read for me. Like I said, I'm really fussy with romance books, but this one was just everything and more. I loved the guy in it, and I really liked the girl, and it was just stunning vibes all around. Rhett, our main male character, is a bull rider, and he is a little bit of a wild child. He has a bit of a reputation for himself, and so his agency pulls in one of their employees, who is this girl Summer, and she comes to kind of keep Rhett in check, essentially babysitting him, but I don't really like that term because it makes it seem really silly. You see the reason why she has to look after him and like look over him and make sure he's not doing anything to mess up his reputation any further than he already has. The romance between them is really lovely. There's some kind of like deeper themes, which I think is really cool seeing in a contemporary romance book, because often these are just light and fluffy. It definitely remains a light and fluffy book, but it also has some substance to it, which I enjoyed, and also just perfect vibes all around. It's so perfect for the spring summer vibes. I'm sure you'll love it. I have a literary fiction book to mention. This is Happy Hour by Marlowe Granados. This is a really fun book. It's just about the absolute best vibes of summer, the absolute best vibes of just like living your life with not a care in the world. We follow these two girls, Isa and what is her friend called? Gala. They moved to New York City to just spend the summer there, and they don't have working visas, so they have to work jobs which are only paid in cash, or work all these strange jobs. So some of their jobs are literally just to like sit there looking pretty outside a bar to encourage other people to go to the bar, you know, like things like that. Or they sell their clothes. They just do whatever they can to have enough money to just like get by, but also go out partying in the evenings and enjoying New York City life. This is such a fun book. There's some parts that are quite emotional about it, but a lot of it is just kind of fun for fun's sake. It's definitely giving that kind of like city summer vibe. It feels like you're sitting inside at like a really like ultra air-conditioned bar, and you're being kind of gossiped to over a really overpriced cocktail that's actually surprisingly kind of good, and you would sit outside drinking it, but the heat's a little bit kind of clammy and like New York City heat, so you decide to sit inside, but you're kind of a bit cold, but like the vibes are so good because you're with the best person who just knows all the local gossip. That's what this book's like. I really highly recommend it. So much fun. I cannot be the only girl who gets absolutely kind of unhealthily obsessed with tennis every single July when Wimbledon rolls around. If you're one of those people too, then this is the book for you. Carrie is back. I was really disappointed actually. This book came out after Wimbledon was over. I think it came out like late August or something like that, and I wish I'd actually kind of saved it, because I know like tennis is like a year-round thing, but like I really get so excited about it in the summer months simply because of Wimbledon. I'll literally be like working on my computer like in front of the TV with the Wimbledon on 24/7 because it's just my favorite thing ever. Carrie is back, follows Carrie. She is a professional tennis player, but she's been having a lot of trouble recently. She was injured and she's trying to make her comeback because someone has stolen her title. Carrie's father is actually her coach. He's coached her since she was a little girl. He's very kind of like renowned at his job, but it means that they have quite a complex relationship because he's like her only family, but he's also in charge of her career. So her life is very much just tennis. Carrie is not a very kind of well-loved person. She is very fiery and stubborn and quite rude to other players on court, so the press have a kind of skewed view of her. They don't see like what's actually inside, they just see like how she reacts to things in like quite an aggressive way on court and in interviews and things like that. There's a slight kind of romance subplot to this, but mostly it's about Carrie's relationship with her father and her relationship with tennis, and what tennis is to her and what it like what it should be to her. If you're into tennis, or even if you're not, if you're just into kind of books that have a really strong character study, then I really highly recommend this one. I mentioned Malibu Rising last year in my Summer Breaks video, and that's another TJR book, but this year's one is going to be this one. Plus Daisy Jones and the Six. I wouldn't mention this except the fact that I just finished the TV show, adapted this on Amazon Prime. I watched the first few episodes when it first came out like last year or something, but I finally got around to finishing it just last month. I mean, it's just in such the mood for this book. It's so fun and summery. Most of it's set in California, and it's about these rock musicians in the 70s, this band Daisy Jones and the Six, and the rise and fall of them. It's obviously fiction, but they were this kind of really popular band that rose to fame, and then things went wrong, but the public don't know what actually went wrong, what caused them to break up. So we're following them in the future. This book's told in an interview style format, and the characters are recounting what happened to the band and what caused them to fall apart. It's a very kind of complex story. There's so much more to it than I think I first saw having read it. I'm very interested in kind of rereading this. This also has a really, really popular, well-loved audiobook. I think it's a full cast narration. I'm very intrigued to actually reread the book via that format. So if you want a summer audiobook and you haven't already read it, this could be the one. Also recommend the show. The show's good too. Our main character Daisy also goes to Greece at one point, so there's this kind of like holiday plotline, which is also kind of appropriate for the season. I'm counting those two together because I kind of only wanted to mention one book from each author, but I really do recommend pretty much all of TJR's books for the summertime. Okay, the next book I have to mention I don't actually have with me because I read it on Kindle. I've been meaning to buy myself a physical copy for a really long time now, but I just have never got around to it, and that is Every Summer After by Carley Fortune. This book follows two people, Percy and Sam. They grow up alongside each other because Sam lives in this little neighbourhood. His family are actually the next door neighbours to Percy's family's holiday home. Does that make sense? So Sam lives there 24/7, but Percy comes down for the holidays. Percy and Sam very quickly become absolute besties, and that friendship kind of turns into something a little bit more, of course, because this is obviously a romance book. So 50% of this book is told in the past when the kids are growing up, and 50% is told in the present, or the future, I guess. I don't know. The future from that past, but the present timeline, where we know that something has gone wrong in the past, which meant that Percy and Sam have stopped talking, but they're starting to kind of rekindle something, and also starting to address what happened in the past. The two timelines kind of like interlink, and you eventually have this kind of crossover where you find out what happened in the past and whether the characters can fix it or not. Such a fun book. It really keeps you kind of intrigued. It's also set by this lake, so it's very much kind of like summer holiday vibes. Really, really fun. I feel like it's a perfect kind of beach read or a poolside read because it's really, really entertaining, but it is also just like a summery romance at the end of the day. You will kind of be... You want to know what's happening, but you won't be kind of so glued to your book that you can't enjoy your holiday. This author also has two more summer romance books that just came out. This one came out literally like couple weeks ago. I haven't read those two yet, but considering this first book is her debut, I'm kind of sure that the next two could be great as well. So if you read this and you love it, you could always end up reading those two as well. This was like a 4-star read. It was so solid and I just enjoyed every single second pretty much. There is a bit of controversy around the thing that happened in the past that caused the characters to kind of lose touch with each other or fall out when they were children or when they were teenagers. I had a massive conversation with someone recently about it actually, but I think just give it time. Don't be put off by people disliking that thing, because I think there was a little bit of a justification behind what happened, but that's just my opinion. This is another kind of literary fiction book, August Blue by Deborah Levy. This is one I read this year actually, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a little bit kind of speculative. We're following this lady called Elsie, and she is a concert pianist. She's very, very talented. And one day she just like gets up mid-performance and walks off stage. She's kind of like middle-aged and she just has a little bit of a mental breakdown that just causes her to be unable to kind of continue with her career. So she takes a bit of a break and she goes traveling, and you follow her as she makes her way around Europe. This book is set in 3 locations. Well, first of all, it's set in London because that's where Elsa's playing the piano and that's where she's originally from. But then she goes to Athens, she goes to Paris, and then she ends up in Sardinia. The setting in Sardinia is beautiful. She spends a lot of time kind of swimming in the sea, eating good food, drinking good wine. I really, really like the 2 books by Deborah Levy I've read. The first one was Things I Don't Want to Know, which is the first part in her kind of autobiography series. So that's non-fiction. But my favourite thing about her writing, and I would recommend that one for summer as well, because my favourite thing about her writing is the fact that she writes descriptions of places that she's travelled to, or her characters are travelling to, that are just so beautiful. They're so like relatable. She really captures the kind of essence of the places that she's in, or her characters are in. I'm recommending this one over Things I Don't Want to Know simply because this one is set in those 3 European countries, and I feel like this is more kind of like summer holiday vibes. Like some of the other books I've mentioned on this list, it also has quite a lot of substance. It's very, very well written, and it also is kind of slightly open-ended, but not in that like kind of annoying way, just in a way that like allows you to kind of interpret it in a little bit of a way that's kind of unique to you. It's also a very, very quick read, and I think the paperback has just come out, so you don't have to be, you know, bringing this hardcover with you on holiday. But I also think this book would be great to read at home if you're not going away anywhere. Very short, and the font is massive, massive margins as well. Okay, I apologise if the angle is probably a little bit different because I just had to pause filming because I was convinced that the shots were out of focus, and I was like, I've just been speaking for like 20 minutes. That would be the worst. More than 20 minutes even. I think we're okay though. This is my #1 recommendation for a book that you should read while you're at home and you don't have any holiday plans, but you so wish you were going somewhere beautiful within Europe or somewhere tropical, I don't know, just somewhere by the sea where it's warm and there's really good food. This is the book for you. This is Theatre for Dreamers by Polly Samson. This book is known on my channel for me having given it a 5-star prediction and then having ended up giving it a 3-star overall. It did let me down a little bit, but the reasons why it let me down were nothing to do with kind of the reason why I think that it would be perfect to read in the summertime. And what I loved about this book are the things that I think would make it perfect for summer. So this book follows Erica. She is 18 and she travels to the island of Hydra. Hydra historically is known for a bunch of things obviously, but like within the past kind of 60 years, 50-60 years, Leonard Cohen, that was where he was hanging out. He had this entire circle of writers and musicians, artists, all sort of creatives living out on Hydra as kind of like expats, just soaking up the sunshine, swimming in the sea every single second and just really enjoying island life. Leonard Cohen is actually a character in this book, so this is kind of a semi-fictionalized novel. Erica didn't exist, but many of the characters that I mentioned in here did. I think the description on the back here is great, so I'll just read this to you because I think it just kind of sums up the book in one little paragraph. Erica is 18 and ready for freedom. It's the summer of 1960 when she lands on the sun-baked Greek island of Hydra, where she is swept up in a circle of bohemian poets, painters, musicians, writers and artists living tangled lives. Life on their island paradise is heady, dreamlike, a string of seemingly endless summer days, but nothing can last forever. It has beautiful descriptions, it's very, very kind of highly atmospheric. I didn't love it, like I said, I filmed an entire one book focused reading blog on this, I'll have it linked, but I really don't want it to kind of put you off reading the book because I think that on so many levels it delivered, it just didn't kind of live up to the kind of 5-star prediction I had in my head, which is just so, like, basically no book on my 5-star prediction list is ever going to live up to that because I'm so fussy, like I said. Like last year I think I had like 3 5-star reads, the year before that I had 2. This year I've actually had 4, but at least one of those has been a reread. Take my kind of rating of this with a pinch of salt. Probably was a little bit harsh on this, but there's so many good quotes, and like I said, it's just ideal for you to not take on a holiday to Greece, but to read it at home in your rainy, cold living room or bedroom, wherever you are, or even out in the garden when it's like a little bit sunny but like you wish it was warmer and you wish there was like the ocean on your doorstep. This is the book. I've really gone on about that one, but like I truly recommend it. It was so much fun. Just perfect for this exact kind of recommendation I'm giving right now. Okay, I did tell you there was gonna be a fantasy book and I did not lie. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. So last year I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm sure you've heard of it, the entire world's read it by now. That is a dragon fantasy book, very kind of like high fantasy 500-page book. I really enjoyed reading over the summertime because I could sit outside in the garden in the warm weather and just like be totally immersed in this fantasy book. Lots of the books I mentioned here have all been ones that are kind of like set in the summer or set on some like beautiful European island. But this one I feel like it's more appropriate for like the longer time you have kind of over the summer to dedicate to leisure and enjoying kind of just existing, particularly like outside if you're able to. It's also real escapism, so if you're having one in the summers or you're just like full FOMO with the fact you can't go away anywhere, this is also a great one. This is also the last book that I finished, and spoiler alert for my May wrap up, but this was a 5-star read, everybody. I know, kind of crazy. And I'm recommending this over Fourth Wing because the entire world and their mother has read Fourth Wing, so I feel like there's less chance that you might have read this book. But yeah, still like similar length, 450 pages, and so immersive, just so good. I'm definitely not going to kind of tell you all my thoughts about it because I want to save that for my wrap up because I really want to go into a lot of depth in that video. But if you haven't read it already and you want something to kind of hunker down with over the summertime, this is it. This book series is being kind of slowly released but re-released because these books were actually self-published and they're now being released through traditional publishing, through Tor. This is the first book in a duology and the sequel actually comes out the 6th of June, like traditionally published. I'll definitely be picking that up, but what I'm saying is that you can basically start and finish an entire series just with 2 books, and I feel like that's kind of perfect reading. You could read like the first book in July and the second book in August or something like that. I just love this. I'm a little bit at that point where, you know, I've just come off the back of reading it and loving it and I just can't shut up about it, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but so good. Definitely worth the hype. Not many things are, but this was. Well, that's kind of a bit of a stupid saying, isn't it? I'm so tired. Okay, last book rec. Would you look at that? Another book set in Greece or a Greek island. This is Corfu. This is the Corfu trilogy by Durrell. So this is made up of 3 books. My Family and Other Animals, Birds, Beasts and Relatives, and the Garden of the Gods. I was assigned My Family and Other Animals in school to read when I was about 12, 13. I was so bored. I hated that book, and I think I read like, I don't think I even finished it all. I just was like, this is the worst. Years later, when I was like 16, 17, I decided to reread that book. I don't know why I did it, I just had an urge to, and I picked it up and I literally was obsessed. I loved it so much. So much so that my mum actually went out and bought me this trilogy of the 3 books, the original book I read plus its 2 sequels, and I binged the entire thing in one summer. It was so good. I know this looks like a brick, but trust me, it's just the most... Calm down. It's just pure escapism. It's so beautiful. So this is another kind of semi-fictionalized book. We're following Gerald, Durrell, the author. After the death of his father, his mother and his siblings moved to Corfu to kind of restart their lives and also kind of get away from England. I think it was between wars. Pretty sure it was between wars. But just to like start fresh basically and to live a totally different life. What they were doing was kind of outside of everyone's comfort zone. It was very kind of not the thing to do. So a lot of this book is just a family kind of readjusting to life on Corfu in a completely different setting from what they're used to. And it's very funny because the family are hilarious. You definitely do see that kind of like family dynamic. That's a very strong element of this book. But the other thing that's great is that Gerald Durrell from a very young age was fascinated by nature. He grew up to be a naturalist. He actually founded several kind of like conservation efforts. There's a kind of zoo or like a wildlife sanctuary on Jersey which was kind of like made in his name. He was just like a very, very experienced naturalist, but from an extremely young age he was interested in these things. So a lot of this is him kind of exploring the land while his sister's sunbathing. He's fascinated in the little bugs in the soil and the fish in the sea. He has lots of crazy pets. It's just the most beautiful kind of like island life. You know, this little like tanned barefoot child running around, spending the entire day outside from dawn till dusk as much as he can and avoiding schoolwork as much as he can as well. This is wonderful. I definitely recommend it. It's kind of underrated. I didn't feel like anybody talks about this except for like in school. I really truly love this. Also, if you're a big fan of Bonjour, Tristesse, which I mentioned earlier, this is the same kind of like summery vibes as that in terms of that kind of like adolescent draw to being outside in nature and soaking up every single second of summer. Those long summer days which you can only kind of fully experience and fully understand as a child or someone in their younger days. So that's that. I'm going to shut up about it because I've ranted. 11 books that I think are perfect to read across the summertime. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you did. I've sat here for a long time. Throat is struggling. I need to go get a big glass of water. I also want to sit outside because it's hot in here. Like I'm sweating under this cardigan, but that was TMI. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found a book rec from this. If you didn't, check out last year's one of these. It will be linked down below, like I said. But if you liked what you saw, subscribe to stick around. I'll be filming a video where I talk through the books that I personally hope to get to in summer months. But without further ado, I'll leave you in peace and go read some more books so I can recommend them to you next year, because this is the extent of this year's summer recommendations. You'd think that I capped it at 10, but this was it. These are all the books that I was like, yep, these are the ones. I need to go and find some more. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. It means the world. Sending my love to you from here to wherever you may be. I'll see you very, very soon in a couple of days for another video. Bye bye.